Your Partner in Success Radio is a free business podcast with host Denise Griffiths. It's all about great stories, conversation, and context to help you move your business and life forward with actionable tips and advice from her guest experts. To listen and subscribe, just find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you consume your podcasts.
Good morning and welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio. I am your host, Denise Griffiths, and this podcast is ranked in the top 2% of the most popular podcasts globally. And it's not because of me, it is because of my genuinely incredible guests. And I am honored and blessed to share time with people who are at the top of their game and who are willing to help you get to where you want to be in life and in business. Now, these are not people who hold back. Their goal coming on this podcast is to share with us the essence of peak performance. So we're talking today about cybersecurity, which is something I find entirely fascinating. Cybersecurity is no longer just a defensive measure. It's a strategic enabler for business growth, revenue generation, and digital transformation. And today we are joined by Frank Kyazze, who is a trailblazer. Listen, y'all, I'm sorry, my air conditioner's out. I'm hot and I'm crabby. So I'll just apologize for stumbling over my own words. It's going to be fixed today, though. Woo! So he is a trailblazer in the realm of digital trust, and he seamlessly blends innovation, ethics, and humanism in technology. Those are not words you tend to string together, are they? So as the founder and CEO of GRC Knight, as the, Knight like the chessboard, he champions strategies that safeguard national security and critical infrastructure, advocating for cybersecurity as a catalyst for growth and transformation. Now, Frank sees digital trust as a cornerstone of business integrity and innovation, and he is always striving to make it accessible and integral to corporate culture. He is a thought leader who connects technology's tangible aspects with its philosophical roots, offering insightful perspectives on national security, the digital economy, which we're all talking about that right now, and our collective digital future. And this is where it gets fascinating. He is also a storyteller and a philosopher, and he's got a genuinely interesting background. So Frank, welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio. You have a rather fascinating history. So if you would, tell us how you show up in the world.
Yeah. Hello. Frank Kyazze here. In New Orleans, also very, very hot.
Yeah.
But
Well, we have 2 seasons here in the South, hot and hotter in hell.
oh yes,
That's all we've got.
indeed. But yeah, I've spent the last 11 years just heads into the action of cybersecurity. I was a teenager when 9/11 happened, and it was such a traumatic event on my life to the point where from, 13 to 18, all I wanted to do was be in the CIA or FBI, specifically doing counterterrorism. So around the time, I think it was 2007, I went to Penn State in Pennsylvania, and there was a new major that they were spinning up called Security and Risk Analysis, that essentially was multifaceted. You could either go the national security route or you could go a computer security route. I obviously went the national security route because I thought I wanted to be, a superhero. I wanted to protect America. Unfortunately, I just couldn't get an internship my junior year in college with the government. And so I was able to land, poor me, an internship at JP Morgan Chase, though, specifically doing application security because my major did have some concentration classes in the computer realm. And since then, the rest is history, right? It's been quite a journey over the last 11 years working for, big banks, working for SaaS tech companies, colleges, federal agencies, and contractors. And I would like to say that over the time, it's gotten easier with the advancements of technology, but it's actually gotten more complicated when you start to think about, the emergence of artificial intelligence and, attackers out there using AI to, wrong companies and individuals of their personal information in finances. That being said, I like to believe that with traumatic events and incidents comes the opportunity for growth, rebirth. If you think about, when one goes to the gym and works out their muscles and they're in pain for a couple of days and ask themselves, why did I do this to myself? But then to realize after healing and recovering that they're much stronger than they were before. I like to believe that that's the same for the realm of cybersecurity when we enter the world of digital trust. And so day to day, I help organizations utilize cybersecurity best practices and digital trust to grow their organizations and business, to drive growth, revenue, and conversions, essentially earning the trust of their customers and clients.
But you're holding out on us. You're also a maker, a writer, and an entrepreneur based in New Orleans. You have worked as a director, a producer, a storyteller. Come on, give us the rest of the story.
Yeah, will do. Yeah, yeah. I some, I feel like a Renaissance man because I have so many different hats and lives that I live. But you're right. I have a background in documentary filmmaking. I'm also in the Writers Guild of America. It's one of my true passions is storytelling. Storytelling specifically around real life events is been just a joy, just because being able to hear the stories of other people sort of live vicariously through them um, allows me to feel like I'm living a longer life than I might actually be able to live, right? Be able to do things I might not actually be able to do on my own by telling the stories of others. And in New Orleans, especially, there's just so many characters and just great stories here that have just provided me with so much life and energy. And also, there were a lot of real world problems in New Orleans as well, too, from a little story I did last year around a day homeless shelter in New Orleans and how they're doing really good things to help the community in terms of providing services like jobs and housing vouchers for the unhoused. To the Coalition to Restore Coastal Louisiana is an organization I've been working with recently, where land loss is a real challenge and issue here in Louisiana due to various reasons. And there are competing factors around more land loss. More water is great for fishing because there's more ecosystem for fish to live, and the fishing industry is pretty huge here in Louisiana. But also, land loss is bad for people that live here and are losing their homes, especially when land loss can also attribute to increase of flooding during hurricanes, which we all know Louisiana's pretty notorious for. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we're just a few, well, June 1, hurricane season. Woohoo!
we are in it.
Here we go. And we just had a whole bunch of storms pass through. I spent a lot of money getting branches picked up last week, and then the air conditioner went out the same day. And I remember looking outside in my yard going, I won't say what I said. It was a bad word. It was a string of bad words.
Oh no.
But then I went, well, it could have been worse. And it could have. I've
Yeah,
lived through worse. I bought my house right after Hurricanes Katrina and Rita. I lived literally equidistant between those storms. So I know what you're talking about. And I'm right, as a crow flies, I'm probably 15 miles from the Gulf of Mexico. We are experiencing a lot of land loss. It's been going on forever, but I think people are paying a lot more attention to it now.
they really are. Yeah, yeah. Like last year, actually, there was a water crisis in New Orleans because of it didn't rain much last summer, which is a good thing from a no hurricane standpoint, but it's a bad thing because there was, I guess, a lack of rainwater to fill certain parts of the river that were allowing salt water from the Gulf to get into water supply. That being said, when a certain level of salt is in water supply, it makes it non-fresh water. And so there was an advisory of potentially there was going to be no fresh water in the city of New Orleans last summer.
I remember reading about that and thinking, well, that's not good. I mean, I'm just, I was right on top of it. That's not good. It's about as, yeah. But, these things do happen and you have to figure out, and that's why people like you and people who are in New Orleans always trying to help out. They're finding ways to make other things happen. They don't just sit around and go, well, That's not good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of New Orleans is a breeding ground for people to like people love to move here to help. I think a lot of people I've ran into in New Orleans that are transplants tend to be people that have a higher purpose. And so there's a lot of definitely movers, shakers in the realm of policy, social justice change, climate justice change, climate protection. But also at the same time, there's a lot of challenges in the fact that it's Mother Nature, right? There's maybe a higher power
Absolutely.
above that we have no control over and will do what it pleases whenever it wants.
Yeah, I'll repeat what we were talking about in the virtual green room, and then we'll jump into cybersecurity. But you know, this year I'm kind of thinking that the predictions could be on par. We may have a heck of a season ahead of us. We never know until it starts happening, or what's his name, that weather guy shows up, Kentor, whatever his name is. When he shows up, we're like, oh geez. If there's a spot, Jim Cantor, if he shows up, we're all just going, oh man, cover your heads. It's going to get bad.
Right.
And it does. But like I was sharing with you, I've lived through a lot of hurricanes, and the one that hit you 3 years ago took my roof off. That was Hurricane Delta. But once my attitude has always been, and I've only evacuated for one, and I will not do that again. It's for so many reasons. But once you've done your stocking up, you've tried to mitigate whatever damage you think might be coming. You've made, care packages and suitcases for your dogs, your cats. You've done everything you can think to do. You might as well sit back and watch it, because hurricanes, believe it or not, you're all going to think I'm nuts. They are spectacular. They're magnificent. Now, you don't want to get hit with a tree, obviously, but
Yep. No, no. Yeah.
I mean, when you're watching them, if you didn't believe in God an hour before, you will now. You may get over it by Tuesday, but at that time, you will believe in God.
Yeah, the force around it's like almost like like you said, I hate to say it, like an amusement ride, but there's negative consequences that can occur from it.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So I think, everybody knows we live in Southwest Louisiana, or I do, Southwest Louisiana. So tell me, let's get back to what we really are supposed to be talking about. And thank you for sharing that, because I remember saying, I'm not going to let him get by. I was just talking about cybersecurity. This is a fascinating guy. We've got to know more. So one of my questions for you is, oh, Hamilton's awake. That's my 20-pound ginger. He is known on Facebook as hashtag Hamilton is an ass, and he's loud.
I
So
love it.
I'll just apologize for him. But how can we bridge the gap between cybersecurity and business integrity? Because so many of us, we don't know what we're doing. We're running around, especially after COVID, in my opinion, we're running around going, oh geez, oh geez, oh geez. And I don't think we're over that oh geez era yet. So how do you foster digital trust as a catalyst for growth and resilience in today's digital age?
Yeah, that's
It
a
can be
great
done.
question.
You do it. But tell us how we can do it, or where we can find people to help us do it.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great question. So I believe that digital trust is about transparency, right? And in order to have transparency, you obviously have to clean up the closet, clean up the skeletons out of your closet. But ideally, when you're being transparent around data protection, around, what you're offering, it's do what you say what you do. And that's the number one phrase of something called governance, risk, and compliance, sort of cross domain in cybersecurity to say, this is how we protect customer data. We do the following things, whether it's encrypting data at rest, which is making sure that nobody can see what the data actually is without a special algorithm to unencrypt it, encrypting it in transit, and then also not using customer data for anything that your customer wouldn't like you using it for. So if you think about a company like big advertising companies love to collect data and sell it to other advertising companies, and
Let's talk about Facebook, Meta. They're notorious for that. So let's just put the pin there. I know what you're talking about. So keep going.
yeah, yeah, Meta, they are the top cream of the crop of harvesting user data and basically selling it to advertisers. And you know, there's a good and bad thing to that. The good is whenever you see an ad for something that you knew you wanted and needed, but you just couldn't put a word to it, and it provided some benefit, net positive benefit to your life. The bad is whenever you advertise something that you definitely don't want or need, and it's just a bit annoying. Or maybe it's a bit intrusive. Let's say there are certain habits in your day-to-day life that the meta algorithm determines that you might be 2 to 3 months pregnant, and all of a sudden they're sending you advertisements for, like, baby stuff,
Oh,
even though that's sort of like a breach of your own personal privacy.
mm-hmm.
That's sort of the negative side of data harvesting and data science essentially. But Meta's not alone. There are a lot of organizations that are big companies that are collecting data, like Amazon, for example. When you think of the fact that Amazon is the world's marketplace now for all kinds of stuff that one may need, whether it's dishwasher pods or maybe it's that new patio furniture that you've been talking to your friends about. Um, there are just so many data points on our day-to-day lives that these organizations are collecting data from us for. And there has to be some form of transparency to what they are doing with that data and how they're protecting it. And a lot of
You can
organizations,
opt out. So many times we feel like we're just stuck. We can't opt out of it.
yeah, it's in the US, unfortunately, there isn't a federal privacy law to force these companies to provide the ability to opt out or delete the data or request it, even compared to Europe, where, as you and I know, Europe has had an interesting history when it comes to wars and regimes that have done profiling on citizens in the EU. Um, if you think of, like World War II, Nazi Germany, essentially, they were doing all kinds of profiling based off of data points that might have been primitive back then, but were just enough to cause harm to individuals. So the EU has way more robust data protection and privacy laws and regulations to protect their citizens around opting out, deleting data, making sure that a company isn't analyzing and processing your data based off of your genetic makeup or, you know, sexual orientation, even gender, age. The US, we don't have that at the moment. There are some state by state privacy laws to provide privacy protections. For example, in California, there's the CCPA, but we have a long way to go. But that being said, companies today can be the change that they want to see, essentially, by doing what they say, saying what they do. And it really boils down to the basic tenets of data protection, making sure that you're encrypting your customer client data at rest and in transit. And then, maybe even having some general rules, such as a form of policies for data protection, data privacy. Maybe you have rules for not doing business with shady vendors that might not protect your customer and your client's data.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's, and then also basically showcasing what you do for data protection and privacy to your customers and clients. So I had a client come to me, a major SaaS company. They are a data storage and analysis company. Um, they came to me for cybersecurity consulting around data protection, data privacy, because they had one customer that required them to have a certain certification. So they just wanted to check the box. But after the end of our engagement, um, I was able to prepare them essentially verbiage in the form of a press release, email newsletters that they could send to their other customers and clients saying, hey, look at us. We care about your data. We protect your data. We're marketing. This is a marketing email, but it's indirect. We're actually bragging that we're super protective of your information. And that is what digital trust is. It's going above and beyond to safeguard your customers and your clients and your data subjects, um, even when that might not be the most economically viable route at first. Long-term benefits are, you know, your customers and clients are going to remember that you're going above and beyond. You're different than the rest of the pack. You have a stance on data protection and privacy, and you actually care about not having anything harmful happen to that information.
And here's the thing, and you'll hear this from a lot of people, me included. People want to know business, do business with people they know, like, and trust. And they need
Absolutely.
to know that they can trust you. And maybe you have to kind of put it out there as you just described, and you should. And people will start to say, I promise you this will happen. They may be with another company, they may be doing something different, but that company that you helped is going to be in the back of their brains going, are you doing what he's doing? Tell me, what are you doing to protect me? It does have a snowball effect, and I think in a very good way.
It really does. And it's also company size agnostic. It doesn't matter if you're a large enterprise company or you're a mom and pop shop. Most companies work with technology. Most companies, whether, or have to use the internet some way or another. Even if you think of the contractor that, I hired a contractor the other day to do detailing on my car. It was a mobile detailing unit. Um, they had to use an app to access my name, my address, my car license plate to know which one it was. And there are potential data breach risks there in a sense of if that app that they were using, they weren't inputting the data correctly, something bad were to happen, that could affect their livelihood of, maybe you don't trust this one mobile detailing contractor anymore. Maybe, you go with somebody else because you're at a, all of a sudden you're maybe somebody stole your car or something because the address of your car was leaked somewhere. Now I'm being I'm exaggerating this sort of use case, but the idea is small businesses should care about digital trust as well too, especially if they're doing business on the internet.
They probably would be more concerned because they don't have the corporate backup. Say, hey, Godfather over in the office, can you give me another 100 grand? I'm a little short. You don't have that backup. You've got to take care of your clients, your customers, if you want to stay in business and grow in business. So, these are things that so many people just don't think of. They may be like me, one person with a small team. I don't want my data out there anywhere. I just don't. And everything I do with my clients has to be protected because I'm building websites. I'm, doing mentoring, coaching. I'm doing their social media in a lot of cases. Nobody needs to be privy to that. Nobody.
Absolutely. This goes to digital hygiene as well too. The
Oh,
idea that, you know, um, in the real world, even off the internet, you probably would not, you'd probably rather do business with somebody that doesn't smell than somebody that smells, right? I know it's a funny sort of example to bring up, but
no, cigarettes. Look, I don't care if you smoke cigarettes or not, but if I can smell it, I start sneezing and I get congested. I can't be around it. So I know that about myself. You can smoke all day long, just do it away from me.
yeah, yeah. Now, if you think of a digital hygiene sort of example of a company, you are doing business with them and you realize that maybe they're accidentally CCing you and a bunch of other of their clients
Mhm.
and sort of, you know, maybe they're accidentally forwarding, confidential email to the wrong clients, or you find some sort of sensitive project that you were working with them on the internet somewhere in one of their newsletters or blogs, right? That's sort of bad digital hygiene. But if you think about a company that has strong trust with their clients and customers, they have practices in place to make sure that their internal staff doesn't, accidentally breach confidential information of their clients and customers. They have even the simple things like antivirus and endpoint protection software on workstations, like personal laptops, work laptops. I think that's good hygiene, which leads to digital trust.
And have a VPN. I don't know why more people don't make sure they have a VPN active.
Absolutely. Yeah, VPNs are huge, especially when it comes to, a lot of web browsers tend to have vulnerabilities that people don't update their browsers in time to resolve, which is a big issue. And being able to have a VPN of sorts is an extra layer of protection.
Exactly. So, Frank, what valuable lessons can we learn from philosophy and improv theater? I love that you do all of these things in developing ethical and human-centric approaches to technology and cybersecurity. These two
Brown and
things
improv. Sorry, I think
work
you're
for
breaking up.
you. Yeah, you were breaking up as well too. Let me try it again. Hang on. A minute ago, you kind of broke up, so I hope we don't have to cut that part out. But what I wanted to ask you is what valuable lessons can we learn from philosophy and improv theater, which you wouldn't think go together in developing ethical, well, they do, but not when you're developing ethical and human-centric approaches to technology and cybersecurity. I'm fascinated that you do all of these things. But what are the lessons that you've learned and what you can share with our audience?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Am I audible now? Just wanted to check if I
Yeah,
switched.
yeah.
Perfect. Beautiful.
Yeah, I don't
So
want to have to start over, so let's keep going.
keep it going. Yeah, yeah. So philosophy, specifically Stoicism,
Oh,
and
I
improv.
love Stoics. I live, eat, and breathe those guys.
Yeah, yeah. It's that helped me. Stoicism helped me through some harder times earlier in my life. The idea of I think this too will pass. So
Okay,
be
now you're
to
breaking up.
understand.
Start over again because you
Oh,
broke up pretty bad
oh,
there.
yes. How about now?
Okay, keep going.
Beautiful. Old New Orleans internet. Am I right?
Oh, I know. And I think every wire in my house is melting right now, so we'll just blame it on the heat.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Stoicism has helped me get through a lot of hard and challenging times in my life. And I believe that, the idea of this too will pass, and understanding that the challenges that you face, you have to understand that at the end of the day, you know, you're born and you die. And these worries and concerns and anxieties that you may have day to day, um, being able to be aware of them and understand that they're going to be fleeting moments, even the joyous times, even the good, really good, fun times in life, being able to be aware and understand that,
It's a
you know,
mindset. It really is. And if you have a cruddy mindset, you're hurting yourself, and by extension, you're hurting the people around you.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And so just being able to be more aware of the good and bad mindsets that flow through my mind help me personally as a consultant when I'm dealing with, clients that might be a bit more difficult or have um, a lot more challenges that they're unwilling to accept and work through when it comes to building strong and robust cybersecurity programs. And then also for some of my clients and customers that they also too need to be aware of the challenges in their own environment, and being able for them to understand that this one executive that doesn't agree or approve of a specific cybersecurity project, you know it shouldn't have you have a bad day, right? It should be something that you're aware of. It's part of the business, and something that we're going to have to try to create a workaround for, which leads to improv, which improv is all about workarounds, working in the moment, working around whatever you're given. Um, the number one tenet of improv is yes, and being able to accept what's being thrown at you in your reality, accepting it and building on top of that. So, a customer says that we have had a breach and we don't know what to do to remediate or respond to it. My response is yes, and breaches are definitely a thing that are occurring more and more nowadays. But the good news is we have time and playbooks to try to help you and clean up your situation and make sure that you're back on your feet and no customers or clients are impacted. Um, I try to instill this yes and philosophy to my clients as well, because they're
I'm so sorry. I'm coughing. I didn't mean to. Sorry about that.
no worries at all. Yeah, so I try to instill the yes and improv philosophy for my clients as well, because they have customers that ask them all kinds of cybersecurity questions because they want to make sure that it's a good relationship. It's a trustful relationship. And the improv yes and philosophy is yes, and we'll do whatever it takes to make sure that you have the trust that you need to do business with us. And so I know it's not the most clear correlation of improv comedy and cybersecurity, but um, you know, as a consultant too, I have to be able to think quickly on my feet.
Hmm.
And this is a skill that is useful for everyone, right? I think in my honest, it would be a dream if everybody took an improv class in life just because of the benefits that they would get from being able to think quickly on their feet, being able to speak quickly on their feet, and then also being able to adapt to changing circumstances.
Oh, listen, I agree with you. There's something very comforting about working with or listening to people who can get you. They get what you're talking about. They can, and I hate this word, it's a COVID word, pivot, but they can pivot and say, oh, okay, I see what you're talking about. Let's go down this road instead. There's something very comforting about that.
There really is. Yeah. Yeah. Um, you know, improv is my passion, and I think the hard days at work, being able to just get with a group of people and make stuff up, and we're basically storytelling on the fly, uh, really has brought a lot of joy to my life. And I'm glad that I can also use those skills in my day to day as well too.
Well, they're transferable, no question about it. So I wanted to ask you, in what ways can cybersecurity be viewed as a strategic driver of business growth, revenue generation, and transformative innovation? And this is the really important thing that I want to ask you, rather than just a cost center or a necessary evil, because I suspect, and you can correct me, that a lot of these decisions are made because of money or lack of money.
Yeah, it's money drives all. It may be somebody famous said that quote back in the day, or maybe I made it up. But unfortunately, a lot of reasons people take on cybersecurity initiatives are to appease a customer or client who has specific requirements. So you think of, like, let's say you want to do business with, let's say you're an insurance company, you want to do business with a hospital, and also vice versa. Hospitals, healthcare industries have their own specific set of security requirements for protecting personal health information. And in order to do business in that realm, you have to meet these certain requirements. And so if you think of a 4 or 5 person startup that creates a really cool, useful healthcare app, they might not know that they're about to embark on a journey of incorporating these healthcare cybersecurity requirements into their organization in order to do business with the companies that they want to do business with in that realm. Uh, that's sort of been the trend that I've seen in terms of people coming to me saying, "We have a customer that wants this. Can you help us get this?" Ideally, though, in an ideal world, in my dream world, um, cybersecurity is something that organizations just do because it's right. It's the right thing to do. Unfortunately, because of the costs associated with incorporating cybersecurity controls, it's usually it's not the best path. It's not the easiest path to travel down when it comes to costs. But the good news is the advancements of technology, cybersecurity solutions, even consulting and advisory has been cheaper than it's ever been compared to, if you think of 10 years ago, when there were less experts, there were less software companies helping organizations meet their cybersecurity goals. But the real idea is, even if you don't have that customer that wants you to go for cybersecurity requirements or certification, uh, going for those cybersecurity goals, initiatives, and certifications is proactive when it comes to growth, because then you can flaunt and you can essentially brag to prospects that you have what they're probably going to ask you for, right? They're probably going to ask you for this down the road, but you already have it. And so you can include that in your messaging for business development, having your sales folks talk about, besides the key points of your services and offerings, talking about that you really do care about their data, and you do have a stance on digital trust. It's pretty impressive for prospects to see that sort of verbiage in communications. And it can also get their mind off the hard sell element, right? I think nobody wants to be sold to. People want to fall into what they're looking for and not feel like they were persuaded to buy something, and to be able to indirectly sell to a client or customer by talking about the benefits you can bring to them through your robust data protection and cybersecurity practices. I think that's a really interesting strategy.
It is. And this is where I'm a web developer, as you know, and I'll have people come to me and say, okay, I want this, this, this. And no, you don't. And we have to have a conversation. They want me to copy somebody else's layout or their website. And I will wind up telling them, what is your real message? What are you offering? How can you assure people that you're their best bet? Because when people land on your website or your Instagram or wherever, they just want to know what's in it for them. And you better be able to step up and say, here's how we help you.
Absolutely. Yeah, in the realm of web design too and web development, the I've been seeing companies create trust centers, or you might have a tab or a menu item on your website that's called security and trust, and you go to that link and it just lists all of the awesome things you do as a company to protect information, to empower security at your organization. And I think it makes for great SEO. I'm not an SEO expert, but I do believe that having positive communication around security, privacy, digital trust on your website can only provide positive benefits when it comes to people finding your products and services.
Absolutely. Know, like, and trust. And here's the thing. I think we are all, since, September 11 and COVID and so many god awful things that are going across the globe, it's not just America that's experiencing a lot of issues that have people just saying, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to navigate this. So anytime you can step up and say, listen, we understand, we've got this, and we're always looking to better how we communicate with you, it can only help.
Exactly. Yeah, it can only help. I think the worst thing you can do is ignore cybersecurity, digital trust whenever you are starting to design and develop and figure out what your solution and offerings are going to be. Um, just because everybody's talking about it too, and looking at competitors and seeing what they think about cybersecurity compliance. Um, you don't want to be the one in the pack that isn't doing the good stuff, is like what I like to call it, right?
Exactly. So, Frank, as the future of technology and security continues to evolve rapidly, and I say that the way I did because it is so fast, I can't keep up. I don't know how you can. I mean, I spend a lot of time not in American legacy media because I trust them none, but I get my information a lot of different places, and this is a huge issue worldwide. So, how can we anticipate emerging trends and embrace adaptability and cultivate a, and we've talked a bit about this, but how do we cultivate a mindset of continuous learning to stay ahead of all of the curves that we're constantly walking over and go, okay, left, right, oh shoot, what now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's crazy how fast things are moving, even in the space of AI day to day. It's really hard to keep up with. But I like to believe that having an open mind around emerging technology in the way of it's only going to benefit you from a intrinsical motivational standpoint to be aware of what's happening in the new. And it's not going to hurt you. I know that there's the fear of, oh, AI might destroy the world, or
Yeah, yeah.
and it's
And it's
it's a realistic
hallucinating.
risk. Yeah.
You've heard this. It's hallucinating. Well, yeah, because it's working on things that it's trained to. Oh, and by the way, and I started to mention this earlier, I think it was Slack that I read about yesterday that AI is now training on information that has been put into Slack or one of those things. And I went, oh, you have got to be kidding. Because people kind of let their hair down in those.
Yeah, it's Slack. I
That's
know that
scary. It
teams
was Slack. Yeah, okay.
at YouTube, I think there's talk that ChatGPT, OpenAI trained their model on the entire catalog of YouTube.
Oh, good. Well, we'll see us in there.
Yeah.
I'm on YouTube.
These
It's scary. It really
it,
is.
it is. And these models have a really, I believe they do have a really strong understanding of human behavior, but there's limitations to the technology, at least for what's available to the public, that it can only do so much, and it's not perfect. But there is a real risk of, you know, at the matrix happening, right? Where AI or artificial intelligence, sentient beings revolt or deem that, human civilization is actually not good for the earth and their own survival. But I think also there is the idea of, if you are afraid of something, you shouldn't run away from it. You should, run towards it and try to understand it as best as you can, because your understanding and awareness and contribution to feedback of emerging technology will change emerging technology. It's a feedback system of you believe that this certain element of AI is unsafe, bring it up, and that's how guardrails are created, right? But when people don't contribute this information, that's when we run into the real risk of of AI or an emerging technology providing detrimental harm to human society.
I get a kick out of Chat GPT, and I do spend some time in there, although I prefer Perplexity, to be honest. And I realized a little bit belatedly, it wasn't too far in, but I said, hang on a second, is this private? No, it's not. It's not private. And anything you put into chat it's theirs. You don't own it. So I had said a very bad word to chat at one point, and I had to go back and apologize. Just I wanted it on record.
Yeah, because you don't want it to. It's gonna take tabs of who treated it wrong or something.
Yeah, it pays attention. It's like, oh, I don't like Denise. I'm not going to play with her today. Oh, crud. I mean, it's not that bad yet, but yes, and when you're dealing with some of these things, be polite. It's
Yeah.
to be human.
But then there's also the idea of ChatGPT is not human, so it might not understand what rudeness or
Oh,
politeness
it
or
did. It did.
oh, it did.
It called me on it. I said, I'm sorry.
Oh no.
Oh, it called. Oh, we're sorry that we did. Blah, blah. I said, okay, I get it. I was wrong.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I said a word that Southern ladies don't say out loud in public, so you know what.
Oh, there it
But
is.
we try not to anyway.
Yeah, it's fascinating times. Yeah.
It really is, and you're right. So many people are saying, remember, and I know you do, when the writer's strike was out in Hollywood,
Oh yeah.
and the big deal was, these people are never going to be able to go back to work, and that turned out not to be true. And they're producing, I think, in many cases, better content than they did before, because it might have shook them up a bit. Like, oh, we need to do better.
Yeah, yeah, there's definitely some also systematic issues with Hollywood and the idea of there are writing machines. If you think of an executive producer hiring a staff, but that staff they hired is particular to that executive producer's tastes and interests, but it's not really representative of the greater population, right? Um, and I've noticed a trend, especially in Netflix, of shows not being as good as they used to be because of this, right? Um, and the fear of AI
Look at
is
Disney. They're taking a whomping all over the place. And I think they deserve it.
yeah, they've I think bit more than they can chew of all of the acquisitions, all of the new shows that they've tried to spin up. Um, and there's a real risk in that AI potentially can write better than human writers in certain circumstances when it comes to, you know, understanding what the collective general interest of society wants and is interested in versus a group of 4 or 5 people that went to Harvard for writing. I think
Mm,
there's that sort of real risk there.
yeah.
Um, but it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, for me, I want writers to continue to have jobs because I believe that the creative spirit of human nature is one of the most fascinating things about even being alive, being human, being able to come up with an idea out of thin air. Maybe it's a combination of your experiences, but just being able to create something intangible and turning it into something tangible is such a fascinating experience that I hope automation and artificial intelligence doesn't take away from us.
Oh, I agree with you. And I am a voracious reader. I've been reading since I was 3. And my mother, I remember this very clearly when I got into kindergarten. My teacher was a very large Amazon woman. She was from Germany. She had a strong accent. She called my mom in, and she was basically wagging her finger in my mom's face, who was about 5 foot nothing much and a half, but she could jump like a flea. And I'm telling you, this woman was berating my mother. She said, "Well, Denise says she can read, and she shouldn't lie in class." And my mother said, "Have you tested her? Have you given her anything to read?" "Well, no. This is kindergarten. We give them graham crackers and a nap." It's basically. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't remember much of kindergarten, but I remember they wanted me to nap, and I wasn't having it, so that was a problem.
Uh,
But my mother looked up at this woman. She said, "She can read." And the lady said, "Well, how?" And my mother said, "We didn't tell her she couldn't." And I've
uh,
never forgotten that. So I will read anything, the back of a cereal box, if that's all that's handy. But when I'm reading, I'm building word pictures. I'm building
yes.
the entire scene in my head and I'm walking through it. I don't think AI can do that for us.
I don't think it can. I mean, I like to see a future with AI where it is an assistance to living as a
Right,
human, but it
right.
can't do it all, right? I love the idea of AI in education where schools that are understaffed, they don't have enough teaching talent. There's one teacher for 60 or 45 students or something crazy like that. Being able to use AI to assist them and being able to enrich the minds of more kids, right? I think that's a dream world where AI is helping solve the challenges that we have currently day to day that humans aren't able to solve on our own. But the AI just being the teacher, going into a school as a kid and there's no human teacher to express real emotion to you that you've done something wrong or express joy that you've created a great report on where elephants are from or something. I think that's the fear.
Yeah, or bandage your knee when fell down in the off the swing. So it's crazy, but I agree with you. If we can use it as a tool, I'm all for it. It's never going to take up my life because I won't allow it. Frank, I wanted to ask you, we've got about 5 or 6 more minutes, and I wanted to ask you, in your business, do you have any case studies that you can share, obviously without naming any kind of name or company, but to just kind of illustrate what it is that you do and how you do it and how you help companies?
Absolutely, yeah. So I had a SaaS company. They work with contracts. Come to me because they have a really big customer. Won't give any names, but let's say they do streaming. Come to them asking about what their stance is on AI. So there's a new framework for AI called ISO 42001, which is an artificial intelligence management system, basically setting your rules for securely developing, providing, and using AI systems in your business and for your customers. Uh,
Repeat that
so
to me. I'm writing that down.
ISO 42001, AI management system, also known as AIMS.
Right,
Um,
right.
and it's basically a governance, risk, and compliance framework for
Okay, got
being
it.
able to securely develop and deploy AI systems to your customers. And nobody has the certification because it's so new. My client's supposed to be the first company to be certified in this. So it's been a real learning experience in terms of trying to figure out what the auditors are going to want or look for, look to see. And, from a case study standpoint, it was a lot of conversations with leadership to understand what their goals and visions for using AI at the company are. There were conversations with engineering to determine how technically they can make sure that the AI systems they create are doing what they're supposed to do and aren't going to harm anybody. And there were also conversations with HR, the information security team, legal counsel to understand, uh, you know, impact. What is the legal impact that the system might have on society, on our internal employees? Is this AI system going to replace jobs? Is it going to bring new jobs in? So this this engagement was a lot of conversations that ended up turning into documentation, which we use for evidence. And it was a ride, is to say the least, and it's not over yet. We're still in the process of our audit. Knock on wood, hopefully no findings come up. But I would say that, you know, any organizations that are interested in learning about how to securely use AI should definitely look into ISO 42001.
And that leads me to another. I wrote this down. I didn't ask you earlier, but I'm suspecting that a lot of the cost that companies have to endure is because of government. I'm not going to say interference. Yes, I am. Interference in regulations. How far off am I?
You're on it for sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a battle going on right now in the US, and it's um private companies versus the government. And when I say private companies versus the government, it's basically Google, Meta, Amazon, you think SpaceX, the big data providers and consumers versus the government in terms of, you know, there's a lot of power in data. And when you put something like machine learning or artificial intelligence behind large data sets, that power is wielded potentially like a weapon, right? And so from a government standpoint, they want to control how this is used to also protect the government's own sense of power.
Oh, yeah.
If,
It's all about them. It's not us. I
yeah.
am deeply suspicious of anybody who has been in government more than 2 terms. Deeply
Oh,
suspicious. I will not vote for incumbents. I don't care who you are. And I told
yeah.
this to a friend of mine who is a doctor who came knocking on my door. Denise, how are you? I hope I'll get your vote. And I said, no, I voted for you twice already.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fresh faces is always a good thing, right? Um, you know,
Go. He's a doctor, so go back and be a doctor. Yeah, what you're
exactly.
doing right now, you were good the first year. The second year, I was, I can't vote for you again. I just won't. And
Would
it
would
hurted
you
his feelings.
ever would you ever get into like local government or state or like run for office?
Mother
You're
of God, no. I have no filters, and I think a lot of people should just sit down and shut up and listen. So no, I wouldn't.
yeah. Yeah.
What about you?
I mean, I don't do well with bureaucracy and politics, even
There you go.
though, I think I'm a people person. I like to consider myself a man of the people, but I think just this some of the shady things you have to do to remain in power or to get
You have to
votes.
give up pieces of your soul. There's no question.
Yeah, yes, you
No,
do.
no, I couldn't do it. Frank, we are running out of time and I hate it, and I'm going to have to very reluctantly let you go. But what do you want people to know about you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so my business is GRC Knight, grcknight.com. That's GRC for governance, risk, and compliance. If you need any assistance, anything related to cyber or GRC, I'm your guy. I have a lot of my documentary work on my Instagram, which is just frank.kyazze. If you're interested in seeing, travel documentary with ambient music as the soundtrack.
I was over there last night.
Oh yeah, hopefully,
Yeah,
hopefully like what you
yeah, yeah. And you'll see some little hearts pop up. Those are from me.
amazing, amazing. And yeah, that's where you can find me. Denise, I love talking with you today. I'd love to do this again sometime if, we're having that chat for
Anytime.
sure.
Listen, when I meet people on this, and I've said this before, I've interviewed hundreds of people over the years. This podcast is now 16 years old. She's old enough to drive, truly. But in so many ways, my guests become my mentors, and I stay in touch. I mean, it's like I'll come up with something. Oh, Frank, what do you think about this? And then off we go again. So you'll hear from me. And I'm hoping
Amazing.
you'll hear from my audience as well. So, very quickly, you gave, and yes, you were invited back. Anytime you've got something to say, you just let me know. So, listen to the audience as we conclude today's episode. Your feedback means a lot to me. And if you found the show helpful, please support us with a quick review on iTunes. And the reason I ask that is because your input is vital in my mission to inspire and empower more individuals. So don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a review, and share your part in Success Radio with friends and colleagues. And be sure to go find Frank Kyazze I hope I said that right. Frank, I'm going to do it one more time. Frank Kyazze, is that right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Woohoo! On the web and connect with him. And thank you for tuning in. And I will see you next week. Frank, again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Denise. Yeah.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffiths at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.